Hi, you've reached the Talking Racewalking podcast. It's all about racewalking, of course. It's talking to racewalkers from around the world about racewalking. Join me, Noel Payne, a amateur racewalker in Canada, as I talk to elites, Olympians, record holders, masters walkers, and anybody who's out walking as fast as they can. Hi, so this is a section where I'd actually be talking to someone, a race walker. So this is where you can come in. If you know a race walker, you're a race walker, and you have an amazing story, I want to hear from you. So reach out, let's chat, let's get walking and talking. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Talking Racewalking. Second season, and I'm back on, and I've gone north of the border. So I was talking to some Americans. Now I am back in Canada, land of the Canucks, and I've got a young Canadian race walker. Well, young because he's younger than me and I'm getting older. So I've got Tyler Wilson here, who is at UBC right now. He just turned 22 just recently. I wished him happy birthday. Another fast guy here. So only 22, but he's got a 5,000 meter PB at 21:26, 10,000 46:15, 20K at 137. Of course, these are the stats I have. Tyler can correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, 20K national champion, third in 2022. He's got a silver medal from the Penn Relays, which is quite the honor. He has been at the World Racewalk Tour in Dublin last year. And Tyler, you gotta tell me about this one. I do my research here, and I'm going, okay. I checked World Athletics, and then I went to the Canadian Athletics site, and I got your PBs and stats, and I'm going discus, hammer, and javelin. So before we start the interview, are those your stats, or is there another Tyler Wilson?
I don't think I've ever thrown. I don't think I've ever done a throwing event. Back in high school, I would run a lot of middle distance events, but I haven't touched on the field events, at least not in competition anyway.
Okay, well that's hilarious. You're gonna. I'm just bringing it up again just to double check. There's another Tyler Wilson who's taken over, because on the Athletics Canada website, I've got your race walking stats. But apparently you also throw a discus 41 meters, hammer 38, and you've got a decent throw at 35 meters for the javelin. So just letting you know. So Athletics
Hey, I
Canada
mean,
is giving
I'll take
you some
that.
field events. But welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excellent. Well, there we go. So now you're whether you know it or not, you're starting to do field events. So I like it. So you're at UBC now. What are you studying there, out of curiosity?
I'm studying engineering physics. So
Nice.
for those that don't know, it's a bit like a dual major between mechatronics engineering, so a bit of robotics, a bit of software, a bit of electrical, a bit of mechanical, so kind of a little bit of everything type of engineering. And then I also take all the same courses as what an honors physics student would take. And
Wow.
so it's a 5-year degree, and it's pretty intensive, but it is a lot of fun. We have a pretty tight knit community, so it's a good time, and I'm enjoying it.
Wow. Yeah, no, definitely. It must be a lot of labs and stuff between physics and engineering, and a lot of class time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of lectures and courses, about 6 courses, 6 to 7 a semester.
Wow. So you're in a unique focus there in academics, and engineers are known for being a little bit different. And I guess race walkers are as well. So it's have you always felt like has it always been if you always been sort of choosing sort of not I wouldn't say oddball, but have you always found like you're choosing something different than everybody else?
A little bit. I feel like, yeah, I've always been had a bit of a niche personality, and so I guess it makes sense that those are kind of the things that I've fallen into and focused on in my life.
Oh, that's cool as well. I think it's really interesting. Now, with that heavy academic workload, how are you managing to train and compete? I mean, because you're competing and training at an elite level at this point. So how are you balancing things out?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely challenging. And I think a lot of the time it's like I'll do a workout in the morning and then go to classes and like get out of class, have dinner, study, and then go to bed. It's not a whole lot of free time. And it is pretty tough to get in the mileage. So like sometimes when midterms pick up, I have to kind of focus on one or the other, or if it's close to competition. So there's a bit of sacrifices I have to make. But usually I do manage to get enough of both academics and athletics done. And so I'm managing and it's working well so far.
Good.
But
You're getting some social life in there too, I hope, somewhere.
yeah, yeah.
Excellent. So what is, I mean, you've done really well. I know it's a small Canadian race walking community. Um, but it's not like you're the only one in the field, and it's why you're getting the accolades. It's because you're also quite quick and you're doing some impressive times. And UBC is one of the few places in Canada that has a race walking group. And now you were under Jerry Dragemeyer, and I know he is still sort of around. He hasn't disappeared, but now is Evan coaching you now full time?
Yeah, yeah. So Evan's taken over full time. We're getting our training plan from him. And it's a little bit interesting because right now he's in Australia doing a training camp. So we're kind of doing everything remote. But yeah, he's doing the best we can and we're kind of picking it up in stride. And I think it's working quite well.
Excellent. And for those who don't know, so Evan Dunfee, so UBC had a longtime coach who actually brought up Evan Dunfee, the Canadian record holder and Olympian. So he trained with this group out west in Canada. And Evan has now sort of taken the reins and is now doing the coaching while also still competing. He's still got a few years left. So I think it must be a bit of a learning curve for both these athletes and for Evan. So I'm glad it's going well. So what's the focus for you now with a new coach? And what year of your degree are you in now?
So I'm in my fourth year out of five.
Okay, so you've got 1 year left in
Yeah.
studies, and then it'll be the real world and training
Yeah.
and seeing how that goes. So what are your plans for this year moving forward?
I think my focus with Evan right now has been a lot on the technical side. I've kind of proven to myself during training and some races and time trials that like I do have the speed. I just really need to focus on my technique in order to make sure I get these fast, clean races in. And so that's going to be the focus for the next few months. And then hopefully fix some of the technical issues that I'm working through right now. I'm going to try to qualify for Worlds in Turkey. So I've got one shot at that, and hopefully that goes well. After that, probably just focus on getting quick for nationals in the end of June.
No, that sounds good. Well, I mean, in terms of technique, I haven't been in race walking forever, but from what I've seen, Evan is probably one of the ones that I look at as really super smooth, nice technique. Um, so a great person to learn from. I think everybody who's watched race walking, there's so many different techniques out there. You know, you've got equally fast guys like Evan, and then you go to Perseus, and they have different styles and techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Equally smooth and legal, but it's just there is interesting how you can have so many different techniques and how technique can allow you to go faster. So
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. Um, so what's the standard for worlds? What are you aiming at?
I think I'm not sure if Athletics Canada has it posted, but I think it's hovering at about an hour 30.
And you're about an
So
hour 37. So how close are you to that now? How much of a challenge is that for you to try and go after that 130?
I think I think it all depends on whether I have a good race. I know that hour 37 is I know with a good race I can do a heck of a lot better than that. I've had some training sessions where I've been at about like between 4:20 and 4:30. And then in Dublin, I was on pace for an hour 30 before I got put in the penalty box and disqualified, unfortunately. But
Once you're in the
yeah, I
penalty
think,
box, it's a pretty big hit anyways.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think the focus is really nail down that technique. And so that way I have the confidence that I can go 130 and then be able to just put down that clean race. I think if I'm feeling it on the day, I think it's very possible.
No, well, we'll be cheering you on for sure. And I know the 20K is still a relatively, well, I mean, you've been at it for a few years. What has the shift been like going from kind of that junior 10K training and racing to 20K? How has that shift been like? What was it like moving up to the 20K? What did you find the main difference was?
I think really the main difference for me is fueling. I think in training at the junior levels, I was putting in a fair bit of mileage, pretty similar to what I'm doing now. And so I don't feel like there's been a ton of change in the amount of training I've been doing or being able to be walking for that long. Um, but the main difference is definitely fueling. So in case you didn't know, I'm a type 1 diabetic. And
Okay.
so, yeah. And so,
You've got another challenge. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. With that, it kind of, because I can usually manage my sugars quite well for a 5K or 10K race. But once I get to a 20K distance, the longer you walk, uh, the more it's going to lower your blood sugars. And if it gets too low, then you start to crash. And so within that 20K, there's the race strategy, of course, but there's also trying to figure out how my body's feeling, where my blood sugars are at, when do I need to take gels in order to get my blood sugars back up. Um, and there's like a fine window between having too much sugar and too low, and that directly affects performance too. So it's something I haven't quite figured out yet, but I'm working towards that and kind of learning with every race that I do.
No, completely. I think everybody has their own challenges. Now, do you think it's interesting? There's no 50K anymore, unfortunately, and I'm not even sure what's going to happen to the 35K at the moment since it's not in the Olympics anymore. That's another discussion. It's there at the moment, but do you think the 20K kind of might be your limit in terms of racing, or do you think you go longer once you've figured things out if you wanted to?
Um, I think I think physically I would like to test myself in a 35. Right now, part of the limitation is just with school, I don't have the time to put in the mileage that I would need to be able to train for a 35K. And so that would be tough, but I would like to do a 35K. I think it would be fun, see what I can do.
No, completely. Yeah, but yeah, I completely understand the school stuff. It was quite a few years ago, but I remember I did a neuroscience degree and same thing. Probably didn't study as much as I should have, but it was still a lot to take on trying to keep active and then get the schoolwork done as well. So here's a question for you. I had some junior race walkers on earlier, a couple of girls from the United States, and I asked them the same thing. So trying to get their perspective as younger people, once again, I'm older, involved in the sport. And what is it like? What kind of responses do you get from other people when you talk about the fact that you race walk? It seems to really hard to get people in general to try race walking. What has it been like when you talk to people your own age?
Um, a bit of a mixed response, but I think usually they're first of all they ask, "Wait, what is that?" And half the time I get asked to do a little demo for them, and then I think once they hear like how fast I actually walk, then it kind of goes from being a little confused, wondering what it is, to all of a sudden being like pretty impressed that I'm able to walk as fast, if not faster, than most people can run.
Yeah, I agree. usually an interesting conversation. I even with my partner. I mean, I've been a long time runner, and she runs as well. And I took up race walking a little bit later on. And I like that just this evening we're having that conversation about like why would you race walk? Why wouldn't you just run? And it was just one of those. It's those interesting debates about. For some reason, I think people find race walking confusing, and I haven't quite gotten to the bottom of it yet. They understand why people would walk. They understand why people would run as fast as as they can. But I think when race walking is somehow between those things, they can't quite put their finger on why you would want to do. You're not walking, you're not running, you're walking or sort of running with a set of rules. So I think people really find it confusing. Um, but I had that thought too as I came back from my race walk this evening and went, well, people play basketball where they're bouncing an air-filled leather bag and throwing it in a hoop with a whole bunch of weird rules, or you're slapping a puck in for no reason while you're on skates. I mean, I think it's all different. It's perspective, but I definitely find it hard to get people to want to try race walking. Have you been able to in your time, have you ever been able to get someone to try race walking? Or if you convinced a fellow runner or like a track member to try it?
Yeah, at my high school when I was doing race walk, I actually we got like a group of 4 or 5 other athletes that was coaching as I was there. And so that was pretty neat. We got a small team, got some good participation. Even just with my track club at Ocean Athletics, I think we got a bit more participation in Surrey in general. Just we had pretty good numbers for the race walk at like the regional championships. Uh, when I started in grade 8, there was I think only 8 or 9 people doing it in my race, and now there's about a full field, like 20 or so people racing. That was all before COVID. I'm not sure how the high school scene is now, but yeah, it was pretty neat to see just kind of as it gained a bit more notoriety.
Well, I think that's great. It's funny, we on and off through these podcasts that I've been doing through the episodes, I've talked to a coach, I've talked to other young athletes, and it is interesting. I mean, you have this unique perspective in BC that the rest of Canada doesn't have. Race walking doesn't exist in high school sport for pretty much the rest of
Yeah,
Canada. So to hear that it's gone from a few, I mean, a few would be amazing for the rest of us, but to hear that with just a few going, other people will start it. I think that's really amazing to see because BC really is the hub of race walking now. And I think it might stem really from people seeing it at the high school level, at least being familiar with the sport, and then having opportunities at UBC. Um, Now I think we just have to push forward at CIAUs. Like it should be at university sport. I think you guys had to compete at, was it NIAUs? Is that what it is in the States?
yeah, we compete in the NAIA.
NAI, sorry, yeah, I always get the acronym
Yeah,
wrong, but yeah, and you guys do really well there as well. So
yeah, that's right. I think part of that is we compete there just because I guess the rest of Canada doesn't really have an outdoor track season, just the nature of our climate.
yeah, we won't hold that against you. Trust me. It was freezing rain here yesterday, and it's going to be minus 20. Yeah, I envy you and hate your weather at the same time, but it is great for trading.
Yeah.
So as we dropped into the podcast, it's been really fun having you on and talking about everything. What's on the race schedule for you coming up?
I think got a decent training block right now, and then I think mid-March the plan might be to head down to California, do a race there. That would be to try and qualify for Worlds. Following that, we've got potentially 10K in May, followed by the collegiate season. I guess we have UBC Open in March as well, 5K qualifier, a bit of a practice race there, and then collegiate national championships in May. and then probably close off the season towards the end of June with 20K Nationals in Montreal.
Yeah, that's right. It's closer to me this time. Usually it's out in BC. You'll have to come our way this time. So maybe
Yeah, no, last year was nice. It was right in my backyard, like 15-minute drive.
that's all right. Montreal is a pretty cool spot as well. So maybe the rest of us will get to see and come down and see a race. So that would be super cool. So
Yeah.
excellent. Well, I'm going to end it off with one final question, and that is for Canadian youngsters that might listen to this or might stumble across race walking and aren't out in BC. What advice would you have for anybody, any young, whether it be someone who's still in high school or somebody in university who sees Evan, sees yourself, and wants to try race walking, but isn't at a university that does it? What advice would you have for them?
I think really just go out and do it and don't be ashamed and know that there's a lot of opportunities out there. And you don't necessarily need a coach when you start. Like for the first few years of my race walking, I was watching YouTube videos on how to do it and kind of went from there, and it worked pretty well actually. So yeah, I think especially now, I think the YouTube videos, there's a lot more resources online. I think it's definitely a lot easier to get into now than it used to be. And really, there's just so many opportunities to go places with it. Like I got my start at Legion Nationals. There's a lot of collegiate opportunities too, like NAIAs in the States and UBC. And yeah, it's a neat community for sure. I
No,
think it's definitely worth a try.
excellent. No, I would agree with you. I think it's definitely a unique community, whether you're a master's athlete or a younger person getting into it. And I would encourage anybody to try it out. And I think I'm keeping pushing as well that it's not something you have to do when you're injured. It's not something just for the slower runner that can't make the track team. I'm always encouraging runners who are, talented to give it as another try, another option. It can open up things you've never, doors that you hadn't expected to open up. And because race walking, it does require a high VO2 max. It does require you to be fit to compete at the elite level. And I think somehow that gets overlooked. I think people often think well, I can't do anything else, so I'll try race walking. Well, at the elite level, as soon as you start watching the Olympics and the world, I mean, those aren't the folks that didn't make the sports teams. So yeah, definitely. So, and I agree about the YouTube. There is so much more out there now. It's not just looking at static pictures and books. There's so many, friends from the US, Jeff Salvage, Dave McGovern, all those guys, Ian Huntley, or Ian Watley. There's lots of YouTube videos out there. So yeah, I would agree. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting. I wish you good luck with the training and the racing, and hopefully we'll get to see you race this summer in person.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
All
Thank
right.
you for having me.
You're welcome. Happy walking.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be talking race walking in the next coming episodes, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. And please feel free to reach out if you have a story or if you have a suggestion on who we should talk to. That's it, folks. The end of the podcast. No walkers have been harmed in the recording of this podcast. And of course, at the moment, we have no sponsors or supporters at this point to fund all this amazing podcasting. But if you're out there and have a race walk company that produces some sort of race walk apparel product or something you think race walkers would love, get hold of us. We'd love to have you on board. Give us a holler.